From what? Why, negative thoughts and energy, of course. Chief among them, hate, division, and fear. You see, I know that we're all one, and together we can solve any problem, save our planet and each other. Please, join me as we come together as one and choose a better way to be. So now, let's begin with my Independence Report. Hail, the gang's all here, which is really pretty cool that it's a Monday afternoon and everybody's here. Regan, Fortson, and Diana
Paque.
I keep wanting to say Paque.
Paque like cake.
Paque like cake. It's easier.
Paque is yes, indeed.
Paque like cake.
And Natasha Venter, and I'm here too. How's everybody today? Anybody got any brand new? We were talking just before we got on about the fact that the work that you guys are doing, Regan and Diana and Natasha too. All you guys are getting busier. Why do you think that is, ladies and gentlemen? Natasha, why don't you go first?
Well, it's people are, like you guys were saying, that it's one of those things that people are looking for answers because we're awakening into this new knowing of ourselves. And I know all three of us are here to help. I know Kevin is in his own way helping because of all the videos he's doing, but we're all here to support this new knowing, because I know for me personally, I did this work 5-10 years ago to get prepared for this time. And so, like, for me, being the personal awareness coach, I do it. I've already lived a lot of this awakening that people are having to go through. So it's just one of those things that we all kind of are wondering what to do. And this is one of the ways to do it, is going past life regressions with Regan and Diana, or you can do like a mediumship, or just even have a conversation with me, because that, brings up so much to help.
Diana, why don't you explain exactly what it is that you and Regan do?
Well, we work with tools that are hypnotic tools. So we take people into a deep trance, and we take people into past lives. And the purpose of going into a past life is to understand where your soul has been and some of your soul journey, and then to be able to go between lives where you're simply in soul only. And going into a past life prepares you to be able to talk the soul perspective, to know yourself. What I learned when I started doing this work was I thought all of my personality was just my Diana self and didn't have anything to do with my soul. And I found out my soul has a personality. It's very impatient. It has all sorts of characteristics that are not cute and popular, so it's learning, and so we learn on a soul level and we learn on a body level in each manifestation. So Regan and I work with clients to help you identify your starting point of where do you start doing your work. It might be doing something that's in your current life. If you had a childhood that you had trauma and you haven't processed, you need to do some of that work first before you start to try and go back. I've had people who have terrible relationships, and they think that they can simply go into a past life and say, where did it come from, without investigating what's right in front of them. And so our guides will always take us to the work we need to do. So I tell people that's the work that we're going to do. It may not be the way you want to address it, but if your guides take you there, that's the work we're doing. And Natasha said, our guides tell us stuff, they're going to tell you where the starting point is. So I always ask people, where are you starting? What's coming up for you? What's the issue? I have a new client who has health issues, and she wants to know where they are from her past. Well, there may be something in this lifetime as well, and how she's dealt with health. So we always have to determine the starting point, and then from there, we move into the way that our guides lead us.
Regan, is your soul personality different than your human personality?
I think Regan's having some internet problems.
Well,
Looks like,
his internet just went away. He'll be back.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. So Natasha, in your experience, in your mediumship, do you find that people they present themselves differently from the other side as well?
Well, that's the thing is that a lot of times when I'm doing a mediumship, and let's say that there's a father or a mother that had some drama that they did to the child, and I'm not going to name it, claim it, but just some trauma that they did, and there was some hardships moved forward from the child to the parent, and they come back and they say, well, the parent comes back saying, I'm so sorry that I did this to you. And the child has a hard time because it's like, well, why are they sorry? They know exactly what they were doing. But I said, at that time though, you got to think about what did they learn? How did they learn what they were doing? And so sometimes they didn't know better to do better. And so we go through, and this is just a very short version of sometimes many different stories that kind of connect with this. But we all have this human part of us that learns things in this lifetimes. Sometimes they're not always positive. I would say probably 80% of a lot of people learn is 80, is negatives. And then, the other part is the positives, and that gets put on to the children. And then there's this miscommunication that happens, and it's just amazing how we get these stories that go on in our lives, but yet once the soul leaves and gets the bigger picture, they can kind of go, oh, that's what I learned in that lifetime. Oh, that's what I needed to do in that lifetime. Oh, I wish I would have had this perspective now that I had then, because then I would have not done the hurt, shame, and claim of all that pain that went on between, the families. And it's just amazing how stories change when they go over. But a lot of times though, it is the pain that creates the lessons that we needed to learn. And it's just amazing because I do have a story about how my family history has some illness and what I did to heal some of that. But I don't want to take up this time to do that. But it's interesting how we all kind of name things, but it's not always. It's sometimes it's this lifetime, and sometimes it's the story of the lifetimes that come forth.
mhm.
Yeah, but I like my personality. I want to keep it, Diana. Can't I keep it?
Part of it you do keep.
Yeah.
So there are parts. What I've learned is there's probably more of me that's a soul personality than my Diana personality. My Diana personality is also very impatient. So I match my Diana matches my soul in many ways. So one of the questions I always ask people is, I ask their soul, how does this baby that you're coming into, how does it fit you? Is it a good match? Do you fit together well? Are you this similar? Do you like this? Is this body, this baby going to be good for you? Or is it going to be a challenge for you? I mean, you have people who come into lives where they're very physically challenged and know that they're coming into physically challenged. People with mental disorders and physical disorders. And people say, well, why would someone come in as a quadriplegic? Because there's a lesson there. So all of the choices we make prior to coming into a life, we may not know exactly the details, but we have a sense of the lesson that we're meant to learn. We tend to forget that when we're born, though. So we have to be reminded at some point.
Mm-hmm. And Kevin, in my perception of knowing and listening to your soul is that your soul is a lot like you. But what I would love to add on is that there's those little whispers that come in from your mom and your dad and your siblings that just kind of whisper a little bit. And with that as they whisper, they shift a lot of what maybe wants to come through the knowing of what your soul wants to say. There's a little bit more. It's almost like it's almost like one piggybacks on the other. It's just, and so your soul is you, but yet your language might be a little bit more of what your parents taught you or your siblings taught you, or if you had an aunt or friends that some people hang out with their friends more than they hang out with their family, and so it might be their friends that lay over a little bit more. Like for me, my soul is pretty much who I am. And yet there's a little bit of that other personality that came through because I was an only child. I didn't have any friends, so I spent a lot of time with me. And so I got to know me pretty good. And my parents left a lot of the language for me to figure out. They were, there was a lot of things, but I can tell you that my positivity is more my dad. Possibly because, like in the house when I was younger, he would always say, "Get excited. What do you want to do? Where do you want to go?"
I like your dad, by the way. He seems like a very nice man.
Oh, my dad was so cool. But he was very dyslexic. He could not read at all. He didn't even graduate high school. Put himself through
Chiropractic school.
Yeah, and then got himself into a chiropractic school. So a lot of what he lived, he basically, what he ended up learning, he lived. And so he did a lot of things that were very much believe in yourself, do what you can do, be who you are. And so with that helped me, being the dyslexic that I am, that I had to have something like that, because otherwise I would have slumped into that depression, probably because I wasn't doing very much. I couldn't do a lot of things in my brain because I knew things. But like I heard, boy, your dyslexia actually helped you to tune into a lot of different dimensions at one time because I understood the language because I wasn't stuck with the human language.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, folks, apparently Regan is having technical difficulties. He's coming and he's going, and so in any event, we will survive without him for the moment. And but Diane, I wanted to ask, because I am so enthralled with this topic. This topic is, we have a gentleman calling from Pakistan. Well, and it's nice to know that you're here, Kamali. How are you today? It's nice to see you. But I'm so enthralled with this topic because it is, when you think about it, when in the time of COVID, and we've got so many people that are passing away, and it's so difficult. We wonder where they're going. It is nice to know that there is a plan, that they are going somewhere. And has that not been your experience?
Yes, I mean, and I've been seeing many clients during this time where people are dying and that their people are on the other side. So it's when they check in on their aunt or their uncle, they find that the soul is just fine. That the world is, our world is is still going through COVID, and people have moved on. It's like I had a client who was so worried about her mother because her mother had dementia, and was so worried her mother couldn't find her way home to the afterlife because she had dementia. And when she checked in on her mother said to her, "You guys looked like a bunch of idiots dancing around trying to get me into the light when I was already there just laughing at you because I was already there, and they're just dancing around and trying to figure, get her into the light, and she was already there." But people are concerned about, why did somebody have to leave when they did? Why did I have to have a child die? Why did my mother have to die early? And we as humans don't understand about the larger scope, the larger plan, contracts that people make, all of these things that happen. But the passing out of body into spirit is one that's very calm, very easy, and without pain. And that people simply, as they leave the body, they go, oh, it feels so good not to be in that diseased body. Such a relief. The first thing is relief. I can breathe. I'm not I'm not sick. I can feel free. My body is, lying there and I'm free. And I'm very sad for the people who are here. I'm very sad to leave these people because they're very sad about me leaving. But they're fine. They're physically fine.
So I got to ask you, because you just said they're breathing and they're fine. They don't have a body. How are they breathing?
They're breathing because it's that moment of just letting go of the physicalness. And so the breathing is more of a metaphorical statement than it is a physical statement. It's that it's kind of like when you're in a room full of people, and then you walk out and you feel like you can get breath because you're not surrounded by all that energy, that being of all those people. So it's that metaphorical. It's not that you couldn't breathe in that room, and it's not that you couldn't breathe out here, but it's that breath of just, I have expansion. I have no limitations of that form. And I wanted to go back to dementia, because this is the aspect that I get with dementia and, as Alzheimer's and all that kind of stuff, is that the reason why it takes the body so long to leave the physical body, or the body, when people get dementia, it's like the soul and the body leave each other, so that there's nothing that says it's time for me to go. So the body just keeps going. Yes, the soul comes back and forth and pops in, but actually the soul does more time outside of itself, of the body, than it does with the body. And so with that, there's a cord that kind of forgets, oh, wait a minute, I have a physical body that needs to have a timeline here. And that's where I feel like that, in a loving statement that I can make here, is that COVID gave some of these bodies permission to leave, because the soul already wanted to go, but yet the body just didn't have the button to push it to leave. Because a lot of times it doesn't have disease. Sometimes it doesn't have, and sometimes it's just that they stop eating is the reason why they go. So there's this process that the body needs to go through to say, oh, because the soul a lot of times is that timeline that says, okay, it's time for me to go. And then there's a reason that the body creates to leave this body, so the soul can go off and do its work.
So Regan, welcome back, old buddy.
Yeah, I had to drive a few miles away to try to get better reception.
He's
Right in the
driving.
middle of LA, you wouldn't think there'd be a problem.
Well, I'm glad you made it back.
Yeah,
so now, what do you think of the discussion so far? Just kidding.
It's great. Yeah, I know. I just have this saying, we talk about past lives. It's like, how do you know where you're going unless you know where you've been? And it's kind of just, it gives you an idea. But, again, as we'll reiterate many times on this show and when we're talking about this, the most important thing about people listen to this first time, some people maybe a year from now will be listening to this and they go, what? There's something there is an afterlife. Mediums are real and all this. The only reason we do it is it's to help you in the now. It's, in other words, that once you have a little more information about life, and you get some more information, and it causes you to act differently. It causes you, people listening to this from this step forward, just know that there is an afterlife, that you have a mission to do and meaning and purpose. And, people have these ecstatic experiences without a body and near-death experiences. Well, the whole purpose of that is to wake you up so that you behave better in the moment now from this day forward than you did in the past. So that's what we're all trying to do, is just, no matter how how advanced spiritually we get, there's always another step. There's always another way to be a little bit better.
So let me ask the three of you, and we'll go in alphabetical order, and Natasha can decide what that is.
Be Diana now. Thank you. My guide told me that. He was out of that. My guide told me that. Actually, it's Michael. He's laughing. Archangel Michael. He's laughing.
But the three of you all have clients, and you've all worked with people. Have you noticed after working with somebody that they present a distinct change in where they were to where they are now? Diana, you first.
Yeah, I find that people may even physically change, that you see a lightening, that you see an energetic shift, that the more they understand and the more comfortable they are with where they are and move out of a place of judgment, but simply understanding and being present, lightens the load. And so if I understand why something is happening and I understand the path that I'm on, and I can just let go of needing to explain everything and judge everything, it lightens my load. And I see people physically change. They just look younger, they look more relaxed. Sometimes they are more distressed in the moment, but once they process it, then they learn from it. And not everything you get when you ask the big questions is what you want to hear. It's what you it isn't necessarily what you want to hear. So so sometimes in the moment people are not happy with the answer, but they know it's true. I think it's when people don't always like to hear the truth, and it's true in order to fool ourselves into being comfortable. And so sometimes I find people will shift into feeling more comfortable.
Well, I have to say, there's a lot of energy going on in this little.
I know.
Because both we've all had the issues. Natasha, you're next. Have you, when you're doing a mediumship with somebody, when you really dig in and touch them, do you notice a change over time?
I do. And it's not always I want to make this clear, because it's not always doing the mediumship. It's doing the intuitive work that I do, because of seeing through much of the trauma that happens in this world, and the personal story that they went through. That a lot of times, that's why I think my guides told me I'm a personal awareness coach, because I can see into the reason. Like I had one client that was working through shame. And shame had her from very young and moving forward. And so we took pretty much the whole hour just working on her aspect of shame. And doing that, she became lighter, and like it almost like was the key to unlocking a lot of her from moving forward. She always wondered why she kept hitting the wall to bettering herself, or she was always doing the shame towards, it even came down to her smoking. She loves smoking, but she's a Native American. And I told her, well, change the aspect of the shame of smoking to doing the ceremonial smoke. I didn't judge her on smoking, but she was judging her, shaming herself because she was smoking. And once she said that she started shifting it from doing the ceremonial smoke to just smoking because she needed it, she said that she was changing the timing of it. She was changing the aspect of it. And I can see in her body that it was shifting. It wasn't the negative aspect of the smoking. It was actually the more working towards the why am I smoking? There's that process of things. And so with that there's been these big shifts. People come to me and they say, Natasha, I've spent, dollars and dollars on going to a counselor. One session with you and I've got it. It's like, and it's not because I'm not patting myself on the back, but that's the whole aspect of getting a different perspective. Counselors, but there's two sides to every story. There's the human side, and then there's the spirit side. And when you get those two sides, you can make a bigger picture of why something might be happening in your life. And that is the whole calling that I'm here to do, is to help people get through why? And like I tell people, I say at the beginning, I know that there's going to be something here. Remember, your truth is your truth. But, there's a truth that's going to be said here. So put it in your back pocket, wear it around for a little while and see how it feels to you. Sometimes you need that little bit of time to get aware of, oh, really, that's what it is going on. And that's why I love people to record my sessions with them. Because there's mantras, there's different things that come up in our sessions that really support them in their day-to-day walk.
Hey, Regan, I wanted to ask you about our friend Tony, who came on to the show at one point. Have you noticed any change? Has he made any changes since he talked to both you and Natasha?
Uh-oh.
Apparently, Los Angeles does not have very good internet.
Are you guys hearing all kinds of static?
Yes, we are.
It's just me. I'm gonna leave for the moment. I'll log back in another mile or two. I'll go to another place. And if I'm still doing the static, I'll check out because I don't want to mess up what you guys are doing.
Oh, you guys are fine. You're fine, Regan. You're fine.
When I log back in, tell me if you'll hear the static. So
sounds like
because I'm just hearing all kinds of static. Anyway, Tony is now in. Where'd he go? Yeah, he went to San Diego. He went down to the Indian tribe thing, and he's trying to do a deal down there. He said he has 6 tribes signed up for his cigarettes he's manufacturing. They're called Tribe, and it's he has they just got the brand name, and he has a place in Canada that's going to make the cigarettes. And the Indian chief that was in the last meeting with us down there, he's the chief of a tribe down in San Diego, and Tony's going to give half of the profits to the tribe. So they have 6 tribes signed up. So, that's his, his other project that he's doing,
Yeah,
so,
but did he?
Yeah.
Did you notice a change in him? Did he buy into what? Did he buy into what you were talking about? What Natasha was telling him, or did he poo-poo it all?
No. Hank.
Yeah, why don't you just check out and then check back in a mile or two? We'll pretend like you're our Uber driver.
Well, and that's the thing is that I want everybody to know that we who are on this side, Diana, Regan, myself, and even you, Kevin, we can only present something to you. It's up to you. It's up to the person, the individual, to navigate through how do I apply this in their life. And that's why I like doing sessions that are one right after another. I have like these group sessions that I do with people. And I like that because then we can check in. Okay, how did what we talked about last time apply to your life? Oh, there's an example where you could have looked at a different perspective maybe, and we can kind of circle around a little bit better to help shift an aspect of their life. Because sometimes we do need something that goes, oh, wait a minute. That's what we talked about, wasn't it? Oh, yeah, life was trying to tell me that, wasn't it? That I should have taken that different perspective, huh? Yeah, but that's okay. Learn to do better next time. I always have the mantra, practice to do better next time. It's like life is life, and then we got to do it.
So, Diana, when you are doing a Life Between Lives session, and they cross over, they experience their death, they cross over into the other world, and then at one point or time, they get to go to the council, and they get to talk in front of the council, which can be as many as few as, I'm told, as few as 2 or 3, and as many as 8 to 10. I don't know, 8 to 10, but do you find that people have come out of those sessions with a new understanding of who they are and what they're about?
Yes, and it's not only just that session. So we prepare for that session. So when I start working with somebody, I ask them to write down the questions that they have right at the beginning, and then we work with those through the preliminary sessions, through past lives. So we set the intentions. If they want to know about why they're in failed relationships, that we use that as an intention. So that's a question to ask their counsel. So when they go home, when they go into the between life state, we always talk to the council. And people have different names for this group. It could be the wise ones, it could be the ascended masters, it could be, there are a variety, and it depends on how the individual sees it. So we use their language. And I have had people feel that this group is standing in judgment of them and they don't want to talk to them because they're afraid. That's the first thing, is to get past the fear. They're really there as your wise ones who are there to help you figure things out and help you understand things better. Um, there are, my experience is there's usually 3 to 5 who are on your primary council. And then in addition, there may also be others who come in for a lifetime or for a particular lesson. So you may have a guide who is there specifically to work with you on an interaction between you and a person, or a particular lesson that you're learning. And they aren't always nice. So I had somebody who had on his counsel a guide who is a guru in this current life, who's here in this life to keep antagonizing him, to wake him up and to keep him awake towards what he needs to pay attention to. So the council is there, and you ask questions. And when I'm working with a client, I always hold the questions for the client, because if they have 25 questions, you don't want them going back into their conscious mind to try and remember all 25. So I hold them and I feed them to the client. And so I figure out when's a good time to ask the question and the sequence. And then their guides are telling me follow-up questions, asking additional questions that they didn't ask, that go along with whatever it is that's being asked. The whole purpose of talking to this group of wise ones is to be able to see things from another perspective, to see it from a higher perspective. So if you ask a question about what does this mean, or what do I need to know about this situation? Sometimes when you ask the question, they don't answer. And so I'm usually thinking about, how do I rephrase that into something where I can get a question and an answer? So sometimes it's the wrong question. And so the client has a question that we then have to play with, because they want an answer. How do we do it? And so how do we get the client's question answered? Sometimes the council won't answer the question because the client is too young. They still have to live their life. So if you have a client who is 25 or 30 years old, and they say, what's going to happen in the rest of my life? When am I going to meet my soulmate? The council isn't going to necessarily say, well, when you're 45, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, because that's predicting something. And there are a whole lot of variables and a whole lot of choices, because we operate out of choice. And so they're not going to tell us about that. But if I ask them, if I pursue a career as a ballerina, or I could pursue a career as a truck driver, if I have those as my 2 options, can you show me aspects of my life as either one, so I can make a decision? And they will open up the choice. So they'll give you information about you from that perspective. Sometimes they don't tell you anything. They simply send you back to look at your life experience so that you could see what the answer is. So I remember one of my very first ones. The guy asked questions about relationships, and they just took him and they took him to this place. He said, I'm looking at this iPad and they're showing me my life and they're showing me all my relationships. And so he sat there for probably 20 minutes going through what he was being shown. So they will sometimes bring you to answers or show you answers as opposed to telling you something. But once you connect with them, it's always profound. And sometimes they sound like a broken record, like, don't pay attention to other people right now. You need to pay attention to you. This is all about you right now. Stop trying to be of service to others. Simply take care of you first. And there are broken records sometimes on those things. So you have to figure out, okay, and how do I then use that in my life? How do I then switch from where I am right now? So then they can help you, but the questions you start with aren't always the questions they answer. You know that too, Natasha, that, they will answer the questions that are meant to be answered and ask
Well,
questions.
it's kind of like the difference between asking a question, when will I meet my soulmate, or how do I meet my soulmate? Now they'll answer it a little bit differently, because how do I meet the person that I'm supposed to be with? They'll give you tools, they'll give you knowledge, they'll give you, well, maybe you need to start thinking about judgment. You're judging everybody else, so how are you supposed to meet somebody that you're going to judge? So work on your judgment. Or I'm just throwing that out. There's just these aspects that when we, instead of when, it's how do I get there? And that's the whole reason why we're here, is to get the how to do different, how to do it with less 3D or less politics of the humanness, to get to being lighter, more energetic, to just saying that, just, I have an understanding. We all have a story. We all have a story. Why should I judge a story when everybody has one? And it's that aspect of life that when we can get to being a little bit lighter, instead of going, well, why is he wearing yellow pants when it doesn't go with his red shirt? It's like, well, because his story is that he wants to be unique that way. What's for me to judge that? It's
I've never worn yellow pants in my entire life, but that's another story.
I watch golf a lot, so it's like, yeah, my husband's and he's a golfer, so
He's a
it's
golfer.
like,
Golfers wear plaid yellow pants and stuff, so they can't wear them anywhere else in the world.
I
Except
just wanted to throw it out there because that's something that would be easy to judge. It's like, it's simple, but it's easy to judge that. But when we get there, it's like, it's like my first reaction a lot of times is, okay, because we all have a story.
But
So-
we don't want to get caught in the story.
No.
We don't want to get caught in the story of the past, because where we're coming from is what we know. And if we stay in the confines of what we've already experienced and what we know, then we don't move into anything bigger, because we're limiting it by our past experience. And what our counsel can do is open up a dynamic where we're free of having to repeat something, because we understand how repeating it is going to be painful and isn't something we need to do. So they help us release from that.
And I would say that, go ahead, Kevin.
no, I was just going to say, poor Regan, he never did find a good internet signal, so he's fallen on his sword so that we can get rid of the
static.
So just want to let you know.
Well, it's kind of like for my family history. My dad and a lot of his siblings had colon cancer. Well, I wanted to be done with that story. And so I went back through different lifelines, through like father, mother, different lifelines, to get to the child that didn't want to digest his life, and it was in a very bad spot back probably in the 1880s, that decided to deem himself, made himself basically ill because he didn't have the tools to work through his life, and then it ended up sitting in the colon, and then that gene ended up in each of the lines. And I went back and I said, I'm done with that. And so how do we, but it took my team to waken that idea up to me, and then they helped me go back. I had a guide who helped me go back, even though I have the tools myself, but yet at the same time, sometimes it's nice to have a guide to show you, well, it was your mother's it was the mother's string in this one. No, it's the father in this one, so it was like the weaving of who to go through the family line to get back to that one being.
Well, I got a question for both of you I'm not sure if I asked this before, so you better get ready. Do we take this whole thing way too seriously?
Mm-hmm. We take life very seriously. As beings, humans are so serious. We take everything as if it totally matters. That it really matters, what you have for breakfast and whether you had enough fiber and how many glasses of water you drink and all of those things that are there. It doesn't, we follow everything, and it becomes those issues of addiction. So when you have people who are addicts, what happens? They get wrapped up in the addiction. They get wrapped up in being an addict, even if when they're in recovery, because it's an identity. And we tend to identify with things in our lives. So we identify with who we are, what we have, our career, as opposed to simply being. It's all about doing self. And I had someone tell me years ago, remember, you're not a human doing, you're a human being. Mm-hmm. And most of us are human doings most of the time. And the doing part is what gets us in trouble. And what we spend most of our drama time on is the doing.
Well, and two, it's funny because I can even fall into that doing part because life just starts happening, get busy doing. And then, it's like I listen to the universe around me, and animals are part of that universe. Well, each animal gives an aspect of what the universe wants me to know. So, a lot of times when I get into that, oh, I got to get to work, here comes the squirrel across the street. Well, squirrel is about having fun while you do your work. Because what are they doing? A lot of times when they're gathering nuts, they're chasing each other, having fun up in the trees. It's that, or they're going along and, it's like all of a sudden they see a dog and it's like, oh, let me make them run around the tree a couple times, as they're gathering nuts. And so it's like, it's that fine line between balance of play and work. And so the universe is here to help us. And I go, I know. I get it. I'll work on that. Okay, let's go forward. And I shouldn't work at having fun, but sometimes life just gets going. So life around us will try to support us in taking life less serious. But that's that aspect of sometimes life makes us do what's in front of us. And how can we get to a lighter side of that? How can we take going from being in a work moment to finding joy the next? And that's the thing about shifting it from being, where we are and keeping it with us. Like I had a lot of people know that I work in elementary school. Well, I had this one student who all morning long, I heard her saying, well, this happened at home. And she told everybody that she could. Well, that was just the one moment. She was already at school doing something different. And so her story could have changed, but we keep mulling over what's going on instead of going, okay, that happened to me. Ouch. Okay, moving on. Let me have fun. Let me do a little bit different. And that's where adding music in, talking with a friend or doing something different that can shift our aspect of how can we more be than do?
How come we take it so seriously?
It's called being human.
Is that what that is? I thought it was being well.
And a lot of us are taught to be perfectionists. A lot of us are taught to, I want to see you, not hear you. A lot of us are taught to be, to have, a lot of us are taught in our homes anger before we're taught to laugh. A lot of us are taught in our homes or with friends a judgment instead of ease and grace. And it's like some of us are taught at a very young age that we're no good, and so we're battling that our whole life, saying that story going off that we're no good, which means it's hard to have fun. So there's these aspects that we're doing in our lives that just is this domino effect that keeps us stuck in the doing instead of thinking, wait a minute, I can shift this right now. What can I do to shift this? Because I know one thing that, like when I was taking care of my mom with Lou Gehrig's disease, and I had a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old, and my husband changed jobs and we moved that year. That there was one time that I asked my uncle to take my mom to the doctor. What was the first thing I did was I turned on music, because I had to revert back to me. I knew I only had like an hour and a half, and I had to revert back to something that I found joy in to support me in moving forward, so I didn't have to keep doing, because that at that time was a life of doing. But I learned a lot. I became me through it. I'm grateful for that moment. But there's that working through that process of just doing. What can we find?
So Diana, let's take Natasha and let's put her in a life between lives session, and let's take her deep. We're going to take her very deep, and she's going to go in front of her counsel, and her mom and dad are going to be there, and they're going to say, of course we did that for you, sweetie. That's why, that's the agreement we made before we even came down. And don't fight it. That's just the agreement we made, and that's why. And the whole project was so that you could become who you are today. Could that, Diana? Could that conversation actually take place?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, chances are it wouldn't need to take place in front of the council. You just have a conversation with your parents, but that happens all the time. So going back and talking to your parents about what happened, and what happened to them. I had a woman who was horribly abused by her father. I mean, physically abused. And when she came to me, she said the last time he tried to kill me was when I was 47.
Oh my
And
God.
and he had broken practically every bone in her body
Ugh.
by that point. And so this guy was a piece of work. And she went in and she talked to him. And and he is standing there like he's a little kid with his hands in his pockets, looking down and being very
Shameful. Mhm.
shameful, like, poor, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't want to hurt you, but I didn't know what else to do. That was how I was raised. And she said, but why did you have to do it to me? Um, because he saw her as an extension of him. He was hurting himself. And so he was hurting her as an extension. Well, why did you have to hurt mom? Well, same reason. All he knew how to do was to hurt people. And this was a life where he was supposed to learn something about that. And whatever he learned was not something that she ever figured out what he learned. But for her, it explained that what he did to her was not out of anger to who she was. It was simply a behavior that he had learned. And the hard conversation was when she talked to her mother, because her mother, she blamed for letting her dad do all these things to her. And she learned from her mom that mom let him do it because the only way she could keep him, she wanted to leave. And so my client said, well, why didn't you just leave with us? Why didn't you take us away from there? And she said, I knew he would come after me and kill you all. I knew he would kill you. And so I didn't do that. And she said it was a horrible choice, but it was a choice of keeping you alive or having you dead. And I couldn't stand that. So, obviously this is the very dark end of the spectrum. But then you have people who are just not present for their kids. That they're just doing what they're doing. So dad is off going to work, and he's not really active in your life. And when he comes in, he's not mindful of you, doesn't know who you are, talks to you as if he doesn't have a clue that he's ever met you. And you feel unloved and abandoned by him. And so when you talk to dad, he is apologizing and saying, that was what we decided, was you needed to learn this lesson about loving yourself. And I was part of that lesson. So it's hard to understand from a human perspective why a parent is the way they are. But when you go and talk to them between lives, you're talking to their soul, and their soul is honest with you.
One of the things that scares me about going to have a life review on the other side is, from what I understand, is that when you have a life review on the other side, you get to take on the personality of the person that you may have offended and look at it from their point of view. Is that you're Diana, you're raising your eyes like you're not sure that you know what I'm talking about. Does that make sense?
I have never experienced that with a client.
Oh, well, good. Because I
never experienced that.
Because when I was in high school, I played football, and I had one game that was just phenomenal, and I want to relive that on the other side. When we go there, I want to relive that experience, but I want to live it from my perspective, not the poor sap that I was playing that was on the other side of the line, because he got yelled at. His coach yelled at him, pulled him out of the game, and he had to run laps and all that. So I didn't want to experience that side, but I wanted to re-experience the wonderful parts of my life that I've had, and I've had a lot of them.
And we do, if it is necessary for our learning to be able to see it through a different perspective, our guides will show us things from other perspectives, not necessarily through somebody else's soul eyes, but through a different lens. And so that does happen, but it's for teaching you something about something that you're wanting to know. It isn't to rub your nose in something.
No.
It's not judgmental. They're not trying to get you for being I mean, I would hate to have to be somebody who was a mass murderer and have to go through cleaning myself up after I went home to be able to work through whatever happened and why I did what I did. But I don't think I have that problem, so that I know of.
Now, you don't look like a mass murderer to me.
No, I'm not.
No, but I also understand that those people that during that lifetime that they are learning that experience, because I can say that every one of us who have had a past life, that's why I have a hard time judging, because it's like at some point in my lifetimes, there was something that I did that it wasn't necessarily that, or was that, type of thing. But I also know that people who go through those lifetimes are taken after they pass to a certain kind of path, that they're guides, they have angels, they have these supporting roles to give them a different understanding, so that they don't go into the trauma and the pain of saying, holy crap, that's what I did. It's like, and then have to live with that guilt, because it is about the lessons and the experiences. So there is this aspect, in my understanding and my truth, because we all can understand this differently, that we all have these loving beings support us the minute that we start the transition. Well, we have them all our life, but but there's certain ones that come in during that transition as we're leaving this life. And depending on what we did in that lifetime depends on who is there to support us, to move us forward. And then we can go through. And I know that people like my dad, who lived basically his soul life, he was who he was. And there wasn't much attachment to being this other person. His soul lived his soul's life. That he moved on quickly, and he didn't really have to spend that much time to navigate through what was going on. But yet at the same time, though, my mom, who struggled a little bit more, she took a little bit longer passing through the transition after a life. That it just depends on who we are, depends on what we're working through. Because I know my mom had different life lessons. They were a little bit more self-awareness lessons than my dad did. Well, I always said my dad had one foot in this world and one foot in the other world. So he was doing it while he's walking, kind of like me, that we kind of do these walks that we learn. But those people who are very much thick in their life, they sometimes can take weeks to transition through, where some people just take hours or minutes to transition through once they're done.
See, now you told me, Natasha, that my brother passed away in October, and you said that give him a while and before I can we can connect with him, because he's got a lots of stuff he has to work through on the other side. Is he done with that now, or is he still working through that on the other side? Oh, so does he have anything nice to say? He never did.
Okay, name it. Tell me his name again.
Randy.
He's actually laughing. He's actually laughing. He's saying that he's saying, you're right, dude. You're right. The whole time you were right. And he's light. He's not heavy. He's light. He's obviously laughing. He's light. He's just he's saying, tell mom I love her. Mom won't understand that, but that's why he's kind of laughing, because he gets the bigger picture.
So you have to tell me, because this is important for everybody who's listening. My brother was not a charismatic, a fundamentalist Christian. And he went and he had a particular, and I had a much broader. I take what Diana says very seriously, because I think it's really true in what you say, and the mediums. He thought I was going to hell because I talked to mediums, and I talked.
He says I did this.
He did a lot of that. So is he now admitting that what we're talking about and what we are saying here on this show of Life Life Between Lives and others, that it's more real than, and he's
but it wasn't his journey this lifetime. He was meant to learn the 3D world, just to stay in the politics of what life is. He wasn't meant to expand. I'll do that another lifetime, but this lifetime I was supposed to learn what I was supposed to learn. His accent, his soul has a little bit of an accent to it.
He did. We're different, but tell him I love him. I know he knows that, but and stuff. So
did he used to call you bro?
Shut up. Yes.
Love you, bro.
Yes, and guess who's back? It's the man, the legend,
at
Regan.
59.
Yeah, I just wanted to check back in and say thanks, you guys, for carrying on there.
Well, you're welcome. So if somebody wants to contact you, because sadly we're kind of done. If somebody wants to contact, I'm glad you came back. If somebody wants to contact you, Regan, how do they do it?
Okay. Oh, and before I say that, I just wanted to add something I just realized. What COVID has forced humanity to do is to think about how their actions affect others more than ever. We just go along like the people say they don't want to wear masks, they go, blah, blah, blah. Well, they don't realize it's not just for them, it's for their neighbor, so that's been one positive thing. And I think as people are starting to realize that their actions have consequences to other people, like what we say, do, and think, so it's just causing us to be more mindful of how we affect others by our behavior. Okay, they could get a hold of me at visittheafterlife.com. There's videos and everything on there, and it's all about what you guys have been talking about the last hour. So,
and by the way, that's the next show. Next Monday, we're going to talk about COVID and the effects that it's having on people and all that. Just what you just did.
Great. Okay, good. Well, then we'll talk about that then. Okay.
Yes. Diana?
That's my name. And I'm fairly simple today. So if
Won't wear it out.
Yeah. So if someone is interested in contacting me and learning more about between life work or past life regression, you can reach either Regan or me through the Newton Institute website, which is newtoninstitute.org. That's a very good way to locate therapists who are working in your area or who are working online. And if you're interested in contacting me, I have my website up here, sfaregressions.com. And I have a lot of information about what I do in past lives and between life work. So happy to answer any questions. If you have questions, just let me know. Thanks.
You were delightful today, by the way. And Natasha?
You can reach me at angelicclarifications.com. And I love to support someone in just wise how-tos. What can I do to do different? Even if you don't know why you want to sit in front of me, there's a lot of times where I'll channel Mother Mary in the first 10 minutes. She'll take care of the whole session, because it's like, I have tools that help someone get through the whys. I have a lot of people who don't even have questions on why do I want to come and see you? And it's like, okay, let's go from here. And we just move forward. And then afterwards it's like, oh, yeah, I didn't realize I had that problem. Or I didn't realize that's the reason why, I had this question for this, and this, but you answering that helped me with this whole thing. It's amazing how when you work with your team and spirit and you work with someone with integrity, that's the one thing I want to have is you got to work with someone with integrity and care, because this is about doing that deep work, and you got to trust the person you're with, because otherwise there's walls up and it doesn't work. So I hope that our conversation today can help with that. But Natasha at Angelic Clarifications or Angelic Clarifications is how you reach me.
And one of the best testimonials I can offer is Regan loves your work, and he has sent a bunch of people to you,
yes,
and they love your work as well. So would you agree with that statement, Regan?
He's muted.
You're muted.
He muted himself. Oh, I know why. Because he's still got that noise that's going back and forth. So, in any event, thank you everybody for hanging out with us today. We will be back. Diana, you'll be back next week. Yes, again?
I will.
It is so nice having you. You just round out the discussion really good, and we're gonna get Regan a new computer or a new internet. So
I'll just get a new city.
Yeah, that's even better.
Better internet. Yeah.
Well, blessings everyone, and I hope that you do walk through knowing that we are perfectly imperfect, and just try to be a little kinder to self and to others.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Have a great day, and hey, and thanks for listening to this episode all the way to the end. Hey, pretty cool. Hey, don't forget to follow us so you can receive regular updates and new posts. And remember, take care of each other, because each other's all we've got. See you next time on My Independence Report.